The lake house, my husband's car collection, the business savings, all gone. When my son called that Tuesday morning, his voice was flat. No warmth, no hesitation, just cold efficiency. Mom, I need you to know the Minnesota property sold yesterday. The cars went to auction last week. Your business account was consolidated into the trust. It's all handled now. I stood in my kitchen, still in my bathrobe at 9 in the morning, staring at the coffee maker like it might explain what I'd just heard. David, what are you talking about? The lake house isn't for sale. You signed the papers, Mom, 6 months ago. You don't remember, but that's exactly why Jennifer and I had to step in. You're not capable of managing these things anymore. It's for your own good. The line went dead. I set my phone down on the counter very carefully, the way you'd handle something that might explode. My hands were shaking. Outside my window, the October leaves were turning gold and red, the Minneapolis suburb quiet on a weekday morning. Everything looked exactly as it had 15 minutes ago, when I'd been a woman who owned a lake house, who had her late husband's vintage Mustang collection, who had 30 years of business savings in the bank. Now I was a woman who apparently didn't. Let me back up. My name is Margaret Chen, and 3 years ago, my husband Tom died of a heart attack while fixing the dock at our lake house. 1 minute he was hammering, the next he was gone, just like that. 42 years of marriage ended on a September afternoon with the water lapping against the shore. The grief was a physical thing. Some days I couldn't breathe right. Some days I forgot to eat. Some days I'd find myself standing in the garage, staring at Tom's tools, unable to remember why I'd gone in there. That's when David started coming around more. My son, my only child, 42 years old, worked in corporate finance downtown, always busy with his career and his wife Jennifer and their 2 kids. But after Tom died, suddenly David was stopping by twice a week, bringing groceries, offering to handle the bills, being helpful. Mom, let me take care of the property taxes. You shouldn't have to worry about this stuff. Mom, these investment statements are confusing. Let me organize them for you. Mom, you need someone with power of attorney. Just in case. It's responsible planning. I signed papers. Of course I signed papers. He was my son. He worked in finance. I was drowning in grief and paperwork and the endless administrative nightmare of being a widow. When he put documents in front of me and said, "Sign here." "Mom, it's for the estate." I signed. I trusted him. That was 6 months after Tom died. 6 months of me barely functioning, barely sleeping, existing in that fog where you can't quite believe the person is really gone. David knew that. Jennifer knew that. They brought casseroles and sympathy and paperwork, and I signed whatever they put in front of me because I couldn't think straight, and they said it was to protect me. But that Tuesday morning phone call changed everything. I called the county recorder's office first, waited on hold for 20 minutes, my coffee going cold on the counter. Finally, a woman named Patricia answered. "Yes, Mrs. Chen. I'm showing the deed transfer recorded on April 15th. The property at 4782 Lakeshore Drive was transferred to David Chen with the power of attorney documentation on file." "What power of attorney?" One moment. Typing sounds. "Durable power of attorney, signed October 3rd, 2 years ago. Notarized by Johnson and Associates. That gave your son the authority to act on your behalf in all financial matters. October 3rd, 2 weeks after Tom's funeral. I'd been so deep in grief I could barely remember my own name. David had come over with papers. "Just estate stuff, Mom. Sign here. It's to make sure everything's in order. Can you email me a copy of that power of attorney?" I asked Patricia. "Certainly. What's your email address?" I gave it to her and hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady now, cold. I opened my laptop and waited for the email, watching the inbox like a hawk watches prey. When it came, I clicked it open, scanned through the legal language until I found my signature at the bottom. It looked like my signature, but next to it was the date, October 3, 2 years ago, and the notary stamp. I didn't remember signing it, but that didn't mean I hadn't. Those first months after Tom died were a blur. What I did remember, suddenly and clearly, was Tom's 30th birthday gift to me, a small voice recorder, because I was always forgetting things he told me, and he thought I could use it for notes. I'd kept it in my purse for years, used it to record recipe ideas, shopping lists, random thoughts, and after he died, I'd used it to record memories, things I didn't want to forget about him. His laugh, the way he drank his coffee, stories I wanted to tell our grandkids someday. I went to my bedroom and dug through my dresser drawer until I found it. The little silver recorder, outdated now in the age of smartphones, but still working. I pressed play and scrolled through the files. Most were my voice, talking to myself, preserving memories. Then I found one from October 4th, 2 years ago, the day after Tom's funeral. I didn't remember recording it, but there it was. I pressed play, my voice, thick with crying. I don't know what I just signed. David says it's important. Estate paperwork, power of attorney. He says it's so if something happens to me, he can help. He says Tom would want this. He says, then David's voice in the background, patient, soothing. Mom, you're doing great. Just one more signature, right here. That's it. This just means I can help you with the bank accounts if you need it. Tom would want you protected. My voice again. I can't think straight. Everything's so confusing. David. I know, Mom. That's why I'm here. Let me handle the complicated stuff. You just rest. The recording cut off. I played it 3 times. Then I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. He'd done it on purpose. Come to me the day after the funeral, when I was completely destroyed, and had me sign over power of attorney, not to protect me, to control me. And then, 6 months later, when I was still grieving but starting to function again, he'd used that power of attorney to sell the lake house. Tom's lake house, where we'd spent every summer, where David himself had learned to fish and swim and drive a boat, sold it without asking me, without telling me until it was done. I opened my laptop again and checked my bank accounts. The business savings account, 30 years of profits from my nail salon, sold 5 years ago when I retired, was gone, transferred to something called Chen Family Trust, with David listed as trustee. $200,000, gone. The vintage car collection, Tom's pride and joy, 4 classic Mustangs he'd restored over the years, sold at auction. The money from that sale, also in the trust. Everything was in the trust. And David controlled the trust. I called David back. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding impatient. Mom, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait? No, I said. My voice was steady, calm. It can't wait. I need you to explain to me exactly when I agreed to sell the lake house. We talked about this. You signed the papers last spring. The market was good, and the house was just sitting there empty. You weren't using it. I didn't agree to sell it, David. You did. You just don't remember. That's the problem, Mom. Your memory isn't what it used to be. That's why Jennifer and I have been handling things. My memory is fine. Really? His voice took on an edge. Because last month you forgot our dinner plans, and you called me 3 times in one day, asking the same question about your health insurance, and you put your reading glasses in the refrigerator. Every example was true. I had done those things. Normal things that happen when you're stressed or distracted or, yes, getting older. But he'd been keeping track, building a case. David, I want copies of everything you've signed on my behalf. Every document, every transaction. Silence on the other end. Then, Mom, you're getting upset over nothing. Everything I've done has been to protect you and preserve Dad's assets. You should be grateful. Grateful that you sold my house without permission? It wasn't your house anymore. It was in the trust, for your benefit, and mine, eventually. But that's natural. I'm your son. Who else would it go to? I'd like those documents by tomorrow, I said. I'm not sending you anything. You'll just get confused and cause problems. Jennifer and I are handling things. That's final. He hung up. I sat there for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone again and called Lake County Sheriff's Department. "I'd like to report financial elder abuse," I told the dispatcher. They sent Deputy Martinez to my house that afternoon. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a notebook. She sat at my kitchen table and listened to everything, looked at the power of attorney, listened to the recording. "Mrs. Chen," she said carefully, "the power of attorney is legal. If you signed it, I signed it the day after my husband's funeral, when I was medicated and grieving and didn't understand what I was signing. Listen to the recording. Does that sound like informed consent?" She listened again, frowned. "I need to be honest with you. This is complicated. Power of attorney abuse is hard to prove, especially if the documents are properly notarized. He sold my house, took my savings, without asking me. But legally, with power of attorney, he had the right to manage your assets. Unless we can prove he did it for his own benefit rather than yours, or that you were incompetent when you signed." I wasn't incompetent. I was grieving. She nodded slowly. "I'll file a report. You should also contact Adult Protective Services and get a lawyer. A good elder law attorney can review everything and advise you on options. But I want you to understand, this might not be criminal. It might be civil. Family court, not criminal court." After she left, I sat in my kitchen as the afternoon light faded. I thought about calling David back, confronting him again. But what would that accomplish? He'd already made his position clear. He thought he had the right to do this. Thought he was entitled to manage my life, my assets, my future. He thought I was too old, too sad, too broken to fight back. He was wrong. I called Barbara Reeves, an attorney I'd met at a church fundraiser years ago. She specialized in elder law, left a message explaining the situation. She called back within an hour. "Margaret, I'm so sorry this is happening. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Bring every document you have." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about David as a little boy, teaching him to ride a bike, attending his soccer games, paying for his college education. Tom and I had worked extra hours at the salon to afford the tuition. We'd been so proud when he graduated, when he got the finance job, when he married Jennifer. When had he changed? Or had he always been like this, and I just hadn't seen it? At 3 a.m, I got up and went to my computer, started going through old emails, found one from David from 18 months ago, before Tom died. Subject line: investment opportunity. He'd been asking Tom to co-sign a loan for him. Business venture, he'd said. Tom had said no. I remembered them arguing about it. David had left angry. I kept searching. Found more emails. David asking for money. Tom refusing. David insisting. Tom getting firmer in his refusals. Then Tom died. And 6 months later, David had power of attorney. And now all of Tom's assets, our assets, were in a trust David controlled. I opened a new browser window and searched David Chen gambling. Nothing came up. Tried David Chen lawsuit. Still nothing. But I tried his wife's name. Jennifer Chen lawsuit. Bingo. A court filing from 2 years ago. Jennifer's parents had sued David and Jennifer over a loan default, $50,000, never repaid. The case had been settled out of court, so they needed money. That's what this was about. By the time Barbara's office opened at 9, I'd printed everything. The emails, the court filing, the recording, the power of attorney, the deed transfer, the bank statements showing the account liquidations. Barbara looked at everything for 90 minutes, making notes, occasionally asking questions. Finally, she sat back in her chair. "Margaret, I'm going to be blunt. Your son committed elder financial abuse. He manipulated you during a vulnerable time to gain power of attorney, then used that authority to liquidate your assets. The question is whether we can prove it legally. Can we? The recording helps. It shows you were not in a clear state of mind when signing. The timing, right after your husband's death, supports that. The fact that he moved quickly to liquidate assets suggests he was acting in his own interest, not yours. But he's smart. Everything he did was technically legal under the power of attorney. So what do? We file for emergency guardianship, reversal, and petition to void the power of attorney based on undue influence. We report this to Adult Protective Services and ask for a full investigation. We freeze the trust assets if we can. And she paused. We file a civil suit against David for elder abuse, breach of fiduciary duty, and conversion of assets. How long will all that take? Months, maybe longer. And it will get ugly, Margaret. He's your son. This will destroy your relationship. He destroyed it when he stole from me. Barbara nodded. Then, let's do this right. She filed the emergency petition that afternoon. By 5 o'clock, a judge had issued a temporary restraining order preventing David from making any further transactions on my behalf or accessing the trust assets. By 6 o'clock, David was calling my phone repeatedly. I didn't answer. At 7 o'clock, he showed up at my house. I watched him through the window. He looked furious, jabbing at his phone, pacing on my front porch. Finally, he pounded on the door. "Mom, open up. We need to talk about this." I opened the door but kept the chain on. "We can talk through my attorney." "Are you serious right now? I'm your son. You're going to lawyer up against me? You stole my house, David. My savings, Tom's cars. I didn't steal anything. I managed your assets. That's what power of attorney means. Did you sell the lake house for my benefit? Or because you needed the money?" His face flushed. "That's none of your business. It's my house. It's absolutely my business. It was your house. Past tense. And Dad's cars? He's dead, Mom. He doesn't need them anymore. They were just sitting in storage, costing money. I liquidated depreciating assets and put the funds in a trust for your long-term care. That's responsible financial planning. Then you won't mind explaining that to a judge." His expression changed, hardened. "You really want to do this? Take me to court? Make this public? Everyone will know you're a bitter old woman who can't accept that she needs help. They'll see you forgot things, made mistakes, weren't capable of managing your own affairs." I kept records, Mom. Every confused phone call, every time you forgot something, every time you needed help, I documented everything. "Good," I said. "So did I." I pulled out my phone and played him the recording. His voice, from 2 years ago, coaching me through signing papers while I cried the day after Tom's funeral. He listened. His face went pale. "That doesn't prove anything," he said finally. But his voice wasn't confident anymore. "Maybe not. But a jury might have questions about why you chose that specific day to have me sign power of attorney. The day after the funeral, when I was on grief medication, when I couldn't think straight. I was helping you. You were using me." We stared at each other through the chained door. This man who I'd raised, who I'd loved, who I'd sacrificed for. This stranger who'd waited until I was at my weakest to take everything. "You know what the worst part is?" I said quietly. "Not the money, not the house, the fact that you waited. You knew exactly when I'd be most vulnerable, most trusting. You planned it, David. You saw your father die, and you saw an opportunity. That's not. Get off my porch. If you come back without your lawyer, I'm calling the police." I closed the door. The legal process took 7 months. Barbara was right, it got ugly. David hired an expensive attorney who argued I was mentally incompetent, that I'd needed protection, that every action David took was in my best interest. They presented their documentation, my forgetfulness, my confusion, my grief-related mistakes, but we had the recording, we had the timing, we had the rapid liquidation of assets. We had the previous loan defaults showing David and Jennifer's financial desperation. Most importantly, we had the testimony of my doctor, who stated clearly that grief is not dementia, that temporary confusion during bereavement doesn't constitute incompetence, and that I'd been perfectly lucid at my checkups throughout that period. The judge voided the power of attorney based on undue influence, ordered David to return all remaining trust assets, to me. Ruled that the lake house sale couldn't be reversed, it had already sold. New owners had moved in, but that David had to pay me the full sale price from his own funds. Same with the cars. $530,000 total. David declared bankruptcy rather than pay. The judge wasn't impressed. Ordered wage garnishment and asset seizure. David lost his BMW, the one I'd helped him buy 10 years ago. Watched it get towed from his driveway with his kids crying on the porch and his neighbors watching. Jennifer filed for divorce 6 months later. I didn't go to any of the hearings after the first one. Didn't need to see it, didn't want to. Some people told me I should feel guilty. He was my son. Family is family. I should forgive. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. Sometimes the person who says, "I'm doing this for your own good," is really doing it for their own benefit. And sometimes, often, the people who count on you being too old, too tired, too nice to fight back are the most shocked when you do. I bought a small condo in St. Paul. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, in my name only. And no one has power of attorney anymore. I had my attorney add special provisions to my will. Everything goes to my grandchildren in trust until they're 25, managed by a professional trustee, not their father, never their father. David sends emails sometimes, long explanations about how I misunderstood, how he was only trying to help, how I've destroyed our family over money. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. Last month, I got a letter from his daughter, my granddaughter Emma. She's 16 now. The letter said, "Grandma, I don't understand everything that happened with Dad, but I know you. I know you wouldn't do something mean without reason. When I'm 18, can I come visit you? I miss you." I cried reading it. Then I wrote back, "Yes, always yes." That's the thing about families. Sometimes they break. Sometimes the breaking is necessary. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you can rebuild with the pieces that still want to be whole. The lake house is gone. Tom's cars are gone. But I'm still here. I'm 68 years old. I survived a pandemic. I survived losing my husband. And I survived my own son trying to steal my future. I'm still here, and I'm still fighting, and that's more than David thought I could do. He forgot something important. I didn't get to this country with nothing and build a successful business by being weak. He saw an old woman, grieving and confused. He didn't see the person underneath, the person who worked 16-hour days to make that business succeed, the person who learned English by watching TV and reading newspapers, the person who raised him to believe he could do anything. Turns out, I still can too. And maybe that's the real story. Not that my son betrayed me, but that I refused to stay betrayed, that I fought back, that I won. People ask if I regret having him, if I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, if I blame myself. No, and no. I did my best with what I had. He made his choices. I made mine. And now I'm sitting in my condo on a Saturday morning, drinking coffee, watching the snow fall on St. Paul, planning a trip to visit Emma when she turns 18, planning a future that's mine again. The lake house is gone. But I'm still here, and that's enough.